She pleaded guilty to stabbing her foster mother to death. Today she was in court and before a judge to learn her fate. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to News Channel 5 The Noon Hour. I'm Leon Bibb. I appreciate you being with me. Our top story right now, new at the noon hour. Sabrina Zunich has been sentenced to 30 years in prison for stabbing her foster mother, Lisa Knoefel, to death earlier this year. Police said Zunich was involved in a love affair with her stepfather. She pleaded guilty to a count of aggravated murder. Zunich was sentenced this morning during an emotional hearing in Lake County Common Pleas Court. Her sentence does carry the possibility of parole.
I can't stand it anymore, so I'm going to kill myself if she's not dead. These were the chilling words that would transform an innocent 18-year-old foster daughter into a cold-blooded killer. What you're about to hear isn't just another true crime story, it's a devastating tale of manipulation, betrayal, and a murder so brutal that investigators struggled to believe a teenager could inflict such horror. On November 12, 2012, Lisa Knoefel was stabbed 178 times in her own bedroom. The weapon? A 15-inch butcher knife wielded by someone she trusted, someone she had opened her home to, someone she thought she was saving. But this wasn't a crime of passion or teenage rebellion. This was the calculated execution of a diabolical plan orchestrated by the one person Lisa should have been able to trust most. Welcome back to Cold Crime Cases, where we uncover the darkest secrets hiding behind suburban facades. Before we dive into this nightmare, I need you to do something for me. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, whether you're home alone, at work, or somewhere else entirely. Your engagement helps us reach more people who need to hear these stories. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Some people scroll by without thinking twice. You didn't. That means you care about justice, about giving voices to victims whose stories might otherwise be forgotten. Now, let me take you inside one of the most twisted cases of manipulation and murder I've ever encountered. The emergency call came in at 1:17 a.m., piercing through the quiet darkness of Willoughby Hills, Ohio. The voice on the other end was barely recognizable, a 13-year-old girl, choking on her own panic and terror.
911 was an emergency. What's going on? Who has a knife? What's going on? Is someone hurt?
She's stabbing my mom.
She stabbed your mom?
Please, 251 Chagrin Drive, I you know it's bad, but potential.
This was Megan Knoefel, and the nightmare she was witnessing would destroy everything she thought she knew about her family. Her mother, Lisa Knoefel, was dying in the bedroom down the hall, and the person holding the murder weapon was someone they had welcomed into their home with open arms. But to understand how this perfect family became the setting for such unspeakable violence, we need to go back to where it all began. Lisa Knoefel wasn't just any mother, she was a dedicated social worker with Cuyahoga County's Department of Children and Family Services. Every day, she fought to protect vulnerable children, to give them hope when the world had abandoned them. She knew the darkness that could lurk in seemingly normal homes because she'd seen it countless times in her professional life. What she never imagined was that she was inviting that same darkness into her own sanctuary. The Knoefel family lived what appeared to be an idyllic suburban life on Chagrin Drive. Kevin Knoefel worked as a truck driver, providing steady income while Lisa devoted herself to child welfare. Together, they had created a loving environment for their blended family, 3-year-old Haley, their daughter together, 13-year-old Megan from Lisa's previous marriage, and their foster daughter, 18-year-old Sabrina Zunich. From the outside, they looked like the American dream, a spacious 3-bedroom home with a large front yard, complete with a trampoline and wooden play set where the children could laugh and play safely. But behind those walls, a web of manipulation and deceit was slowly strangling the life out of this family. Sabrina Zunich had arrived in the Knoefel home carrying the weight of a childhood that no person should ever endure. Born in October 1994 to parents with extensive criminal records, her early years were a catalog of neglect, violence, and substance abuse. Her father, Mark Zunich, was a paranoid schizophrenic who regularly put vodka in her baby bottle to make her sleep. Her mother, Susan Edwards, had served prison time for grand theft and supplied drugs to teenagers. When Sabrina was 16 months old, her father was arrested for domestic violence, the first documented instance of the violence that would define her early years. Police were regular visitors to their small house in Wycliffe, usually finding Mark drunk and belligerent. The neighbors knew something was wrong, but in those days, people minded their own business, even when a child's safety hung in the balance. By age 4, Sabrina had been diagnosed with ADHD, but her problems went far deeper than any medical label could capture. She struggled with anger issues, lying, substance abuse, hearing voices, and stealing. At 11, she witnessed her father grab her mother by the hair during a violent confrontation over money meant for alcohol. The police report from that night described Mark as unstable, off his medication, and dangerous. When Mark died of an apparent drug overdose in 2012, Sabrina had already been removed from the chaos. At 14, she was placed in Emma K. Receiving Home, a county-run group facility designed for behavioral modification. Staff members there described her as someone you didn't want to cross, a girl who would make anyone pay if they hurt someone she loved. But then something remarkable happened. When Sabrina transferred to a new high school and moved in with the Knoefel family at age 16, her behavior transformed dramatically. Gone were the fights and outbursts. Instead, she kept her head down, maintained perfect attendance, and seemed to be healing from her traumatic past. Lisa Knoefel saw this transformation and felt proud of the role she had played. As a social worker, she understood the power of compassion and stability. She thought she was witnessing the beautiful metamorphosis of a damaged child into a healthy young adult. What she didn't realize was that Sabrina's improvement had nothing to do with healing, and everything to do with the predatory relationship that was developing right under her nose. Kevin Knoefel, the man Lisa trusted with her life and the lives of her children, had begun grooming Sabrina almost from the moment she entered their home. What started as a shoulder to cry on when Sabrina clashed with Lisa slowly evolved into something far more sinister. Kevin positioned himself as Sabrina's protector, her confidant, her escape from the conflicts with Lisa that he was secretly encouraging. Sabrina's friends noticed the strange dynamic between them, the inappropriate touching, the sexual inside jokes, the way Kevin looked at their foster daughter. But the truth seemed too horrifying to believe. Who would suspect that a foster father, a man entrusted with caring for a vulnerable teenager, would exploit that trust in the most devastating way possible? Sabrina saved Kevin's contact information in her iPod as Kevin Love. When investigators later asked her to describe their relationship, her answer would chill them to the bone. It was a foster father when it needed to be, and a lover when it wasn't being a foster father. But this wasn't a love story, it was a masterclass in psychological manipulation. Kevin convinced Sabrina that they were soulmates, that Lisa was the only thing standing between them and their happy future together. He painted Lisa as the villain, turning every normal parental boundary into evidence of Lisa's cruelty toward Sabrina. The division in the household became increasingly obvious: Lisa, Megan, and Haley on one side, Kevin and Sabrina on the other. Lisa began to suspect something wasn't right, but the truth was so unthinkable that she couldn't quite grasp what she was seeing. How could she imagine that her husband was conducting a sexual relationship with their teenage foster daughter? As 2012 progressed, the situation deteriorated rapidly. In September, police were called to the Knoefel home for a domestic dispute. Kevin and Lisa had fought about Megan, and Lisa accused Kevin of choking her daughter. Kevin claimed he had only guided Megan to her room by the back of her neck, but the incident was serious enough that he spoke to police about it, concerned it might be used in future divorce proceedings. Because by September 2012, Kevin had already told Sabrina that he wanted to divorce Lisa so they could be together. But there was a problem that would ultimately cost Lisa her life. Kevin was terrified that if he divorced Lisa, he would lose custody of the children, including his own biological daughter, Haley. He had seen too many cases where fathers lost everything in contentious divorces. It was during a family camping trip with his old friend David Strunk that Kevin first revealed the depth of his obsession and his desperation. He confessed that Lisa suspected he was having an affair with Sabrina, and he showed David photos he had helped Sabrina take, including modeling shots and pictures of underwear she had purchased for him. Kevin told David he was consulting with a divorce attorney, but his words carried an undertone of something darker. The final pieces of Kevin's diabolical plan began falling into place in October 2012, just 1 month before Lisa's murder. During conversations with Sabrina, he revealed that Lisa carried substantial life insurance policies, nearly $800,000 in total. In Kevin's twisted logic, Lisa was worth more dead than alive. With Lisa gone, he could have Sabrina, keep his children, and live comfortably on the insurance money. What happened next would turn an 18-year-old girl into a killer and destroy multiple families forever. Kevin and Sabrina began discussing murder with the casual tone most couples might use to plan a vacation. Initially, they considered hiring someone else to do the killing. Sabrina talked to her friend Autumn Pavic about the possibility of having someone Autumn knew carry out a hit on Lisa. When Autumn moved to California in October, that plan evaporated, but Kevin and Sabrina didn't give up. They discussed using a gun with a pillow to muffle the sound, but that plan fell through when Lisa questioned why Kevin never included her in activities anymore. The scrutiny made them nervous, so they moved on to a more intimate method of murder, a knife attack while Lisa slept. These cases remind us how dangerous the world can be, especially when evil hides behind familiar faces. That's why I created a survival guide that shows you real safety strategies drawn from true crime stories like this one. My book, True Crime Survival Guide, How to Stay Safe in a Dangerous World, goes deeper into the warning signs and red flags that could save your life or the life of someone you love. Check it out through the link in the description and pinned comment, because knowledge is your first line of defense. On the morning of November 12, 2012, Kevin was driving Sabrina to school as he always did. But this wasn't a routine trip. Kevin stopped the car and broke down, describing a fight he'd had with Lisa the night before. His words to Sabrina were the same ones that opened this story: "I can't stand it anymore, so I'm going to kill myself if she's not dead." Sabrina, convinced she was in love with this manipulative predator, told him she would kill Lisa as soon as she could. They planned out the logistics with horrifying precision. If Lisa was lying on her side, Sabrina should stab her in the back. If she was on her back, Sabrina should go for the throat. The attack had to happen at night while Lisa was sleeping, but without waking 3-year-old Haley, who often came into her parents' room during the night. Kevin's final manipulation was perhaps the cruelest of all. He told Sabrina that if she was caught, she should claim insanity. She would only serve 25 years, he promised, and he would get her the best lawyers money could buy. He would take care of her, he said. It was all lies, but Sabrina believed every word. That evening, Kevin was conveniently out on the road, working his truck route. Lisa followed her normal routine, taking 3-year-old Haley to bed around 10 p.m. 13-year-old Megan went to her room at the same time. Sabrina stayed up late, ostensibly working on a project for her British literature class, but really waiting for the house to fall quiet. Around midnight, Sabrina complained of a headache and went downstairs to Kevin and Lisa's bedroom to get ibuprofen from their medicine cabinet. What happened next was a level of violence so extreme that seasoned investigators would struggle to comprehend it. Lisa Knoefel was stabbed 178 times. The wounds covered her head, neck, torso, and extremities. She had defensive wounds on her hands and arms, evidence that she fought desperately for her life, probably never understanding why someone she had tried to help was trying to kill her. Some of the wounds were complex, with the knife twisted inside her body. One wound to her jaw was so deep it severed her carotid artery. The weapon was a 15-inch kitchen knife, and the force of the attack was so savage that the blade was bent. By the time 13-year-old Megan heard the commotion and rushed into the room, her mother was already beyond saving. Lisa's veins had collapsed from massive blood loss, and she had flatlined. The scene that greeted Megan was something no child should ever witness: her foster sister covered in their mother's blood, still holding the murder weapon, and 3-year-old Haley hiding in terror in the bedroom closet. When police arrived at 1:17 a.m., They found Megan outside, still clutching the phone she had used to call 911. Officer after officer would later describe the scene as one of the most brutal they had ever encountered. Sabrina was incoherent and uncooperative, but the evidence was undeniable. She was covered in Lisa's blood and had the murder weapon in her hands. Kevin's reaction to his wife's murder was as telling as it was disturbing. When police notified him of what had happened, he immediately asked about his girls, but he meant Haley and Megan. He seemed strangely calm for someone whose wife had just been brutally murdered. One officer recalled that Kevin claimed to have EMT experience and said he had seen stuff like this numerous times. He demanded to know every detail about what had happened and was frustrated when police wouldn't let him see Sabrina. While Sabrina sat in jail, maintaining her insanity defense and claiming to remember nothing after entering Lisa's bedroom, Kevin began moving on with his life with shocking speed. He donated Lisa's belongings to Goodwill, tried to sell her bedroom furniture on Craigslist, and asked friends to shut down her social media accounts. 5 days after his wife's murder, he hired a cleaning company to sanitize the crime scene, telling them money was no object because he had substantial life insurance policies. And the insurance payouts were even more generous than Kevin had told Sabrina. Across various policies from his employer and private insurance companies, Kevin collected approximately $785,000. He immediately put this blood money to work, paying off their previously foreclosed house, adding a swimming pool, buying new cars, and even taking flying lessons. While Kevin lived comfortably on his wife's life insurance, Sabrina languished in prison, slowly realizing that every promise he had made was a lie. He hadn't arranged for her legal defense. The insanity plea was going nowhere. She was facing life in prison while he enjoyed his new wealthy lifestyle. 9 months after the murder, Sabrina's love for Kevin finally died, replaced by the bitter understanding that she had been used and discarded. She went to prosecutors and asked for a plea deal. She would tell them everything, about the sexual relationship, about the murder plot, about Kevin's manipulation and lies. Sabrina's testimony revealed the full scope of Kevin's depravity. She told investigators how he had groomed her, convinced her they were in love, and manipulated her into believing that killing Lisa was their only path to happiness. She revealed his obsession with the life insurance money and his calculated decision that Lisa was worth more dead than alive. Police reached out to Autumn Pavic, Sabrina's former friend, who agreed to help them by recording a conversation with Kevin about the alleged hitman plot. Though Kevin didn't admit to anything concrete in that recording, combined with Sabrina's detailed testimony, it was enough to build a case against him. This took me hours of painful research, reading autopsies, police reports, and witness testimonies that revealed the full horror of what this family endured. If you felt safe watching from your screen, the least you can do is hit that subscribe button and help ensure that stories like Lisa's don't get forgotten in the noise of everyday life. In August 2013, Sabrina pleaded guilty to aggravated murder and was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. She will be eligible for release in 2042, when she is 47 years old, if she lives that long and if a parole board determines she is no longer a danger to society. Kevin Knoefel, however, maintained his innocence. His defense team argued that there was no physical evidence of his affair with Sabrina or his involvement in plotting his wife's murder. They painted Sabrina as a troubled young woman with a history of substance abuse and unreliable behavior, suggesting that her testimony was fabricated. But the prosecution understood what made this case so chilling. Sabrina was young, unstable, and vulnerable, exactly the kind of victim that predators like Kevin target. Her troubled past didn't make her testimony less credible, it made Kevin's exploitation of her more heinous. On June 11, 2014, a jury found Kevin Knoefel guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment for each of 6 counts of sexual battery, plus life with parole eligibility after 30 years for complicity to aggravated murder, all to be served consecutively. Like Sabrina, he will be eligible for parole in the 2040s, though given the severity of his crimes, release is far from guaranteed. The surviving children, Megan and Haley, were left to rebuild their lives without their mother and with the knowledge that their father was a manipulative predator who orchestrated her murder. Megan, who witnessed the attack, carries scars that will never fully heal. Haley, who was only 3, hopefully retains few clear memories of that horrific night, but she will grow up knowing that her father chose money and sexual gratification over her mother's life. Lisa Knoefel died because she tried to help a troubled teenager. She opened her home to someone who needed safety and stability, never knowing that her own husband would use that compassion as a weapon against her. She fought for children's welfare professionally and personally, only to be killed by the very system she believed in. A foster care placement that should have been safe became the vehicle for her destruction. Kevin Knoefel represents one of the most dangerous types of predators, those who hide behind positions of trust and authority. As a foster father, he was supposed to protect Sabrina, not exploit her. As a husband, he was supposed to love and cherish Lisa, not orchestrate her brutal murder. His manipulation of a vulnerable teenager, his calculated decision to choose money over human life, and his complete lack of remorse make him a monster in every sense of the word. Sabrina Zunich's story is simultaneously tragic and cautionary. Her childhood of abuse and neglect created vulnerabilities that Kevin exploited with surgical precision. While she ultimately chose to pick up that knife and end Lisa's life, she did so under the influence of a master manipulator who convinced her that murder was love. Her story reminds us that victims can become perpetrators, that damaged people can cause irreparable damage to others, and that the cycle of violence often claims multiple generations. But perhaps most importantly, this case highlights the failures in our systems designed to protect vulnerable children. How many people saw the inappropriate relationship between Kevin and Sabrina but said nothing? How many warning signs were missed or ignored? How did a social worker, someone trained to recognize abuse, fail to see what was happening in her own home? These are uncomfortable questions without easy answers, but they're questions we must ask if we want to prevent future tragedies. Lisa Knoefel dedicated her life to protecting children, and her death demands that we do better at protecting both children and the families who try to help them. The case of Sabrina Zunich and Kevin Knoefel will haunt everyone involved forever. It's a reminder that evil can lurk behind the most ordinary facades, that trust can be weaponized, and that the most vulnerable among us often pay the highest price for others' cruelty. If you're still watching and haven't subscribed, I'm honestly curious, what's holding you back? Drop it in the comments because I genuinely want to understand how I can earn your support. Stories like Lisa's need to be told, and voices like yours help ensure they reach the people who need to hear them. What do you think about this devastating case? Who bears the ultimate responsibility, the teenage killer who wielded the knife, or the manipulative foster father who orchestrated the murder? How could this tragedy have been prevented? Share your thoughts in the comments below, hit that like button if this story affected you, and don't forget to share this video with others who follow true crime. Until next time, stay vigilant, trust your instincts, and remember that sometimes the greatest danger comes from those closest to us. This has been Cold Crime Cases, and I'll see you in the next investigation.